Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel, Planning with Bree. I'm Bree, and today we are going to be setting up my spread for the book Americanah by Chimamanda Adichie. So first, I would like to say I almost lost footage for this video. I was deleting some of the larger files to make room on my phone, and I had deleted the final edited video. So it took me a minute to get everything together, but I am so happy that I was able to recover that lost video. Just wanted to put that out there. Your girl went through a lot to get this video up, okay? So for this spread, I am starting by putting in an extra piece of black paper just because I've been liking this look lately of putting in extra pages. I've always done that, but for some reason, I just decided it was going to be the go-to for this spread. Okay, so I'm just going to do a small collage here on this page with just a little bit more of that writing that I had left over from my March bullet journal. And you can find that linked above in the cards if you would like to watch the video for this entire March spread that I flipped through earlier. So just using some scraps to fill up this entire page. And then I am going to write my overall review on this sticky note like I've been doing for my other book reviews. Usually on this Post-it note, I would put the author, the title of the book, what I rated it, and maybe a quote or something like that. But this time I decided to just keep it simple because I'm going to later post a picture in this spread of the book with the author on it. So I decided to not write all of that and instead write something that I learned or something that I enjoyed about this book. So after I just write the title of the book in cursive right here, I put my 4 stars there because that is the rating that I would give it, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then I also put that this book opened my eyes to different definitions of identity, romance, and racism in America. The reason I give this book 4 out of 5 stars instead of 5 stars is because I stopped reading this book twice. So I originally got this book back in 2018, and I remember taking it with me on a trip to New York for a job. And I was in the elevator talking to someone about the book, and she made a joke about the book, which was hilarious. And after that moment, I didn't read any more of it. Like the joke was hilarious because it was so true, and it was the one thing that I couldn't get past. So I just stopped reading it then. I think I picked it up again maybe a year ago, and the book is so dense. And I didn't know what I exactly meant when I said that to people. I explained it to someone and I could finally put my finger on it. There aren't any major events that happen. Of course, there are things that occur to Efemelu and Obenzi. I'm not sure if it's Obenzi or Obenze. I'll put the spelling of his name on the screen so you guys can see it. But there wasn't anything that just like majorly happened. I don't know how else to explain that. And there wasn't a lot of dialogue. So before I started reading this book, when I would read books in college or in high school, there would be a lot of drama and dialogue. And this book just was not that. It was simply a story of a young girl from high school all the way up through years after her graduation from college. So I didn't really grasp what was happening, or I didn't really enjoy it at first, to be honest. So I finally picked this book back up at the beginning of this month, at the beginning of March or at the end of February. I'm not sure. And when I say that it's dense, I mean that there are conversations that happen or things that happen that make you think. And there are some funny moments. There are moments that make you cry or want to cry or get angry. But that's what I mean when it's dense. I could only read this book maybe 1 or 2 chapters at a time. So on that page I just finished, I just basically broke down the timeline of Efemelu's point of view from the time she was in high school in Nigeria to her college years or year or so in Nigeria to when she went to America for college. And then after that, when she was living life on the East Coast in the United States, and then when she came back to Nigeria. Those were the biggest moments, I guess I could say, or the best way I could break it down and what happened throughout the book. And as you saw, I had to add a page because I had a lot to say. So on this page, I'm mostly going to be decorating it. I started off by writing the word racism because that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me. First of all, I am going to touch on a few things that happened in the book. I won't be able to touch on everything because it touched on almost everything. There was almost nothing that was not touched on in this book. So one of the things that stood out to me was the way she approached racism in America and in the UK, in London, through Obenzi's perspective. But race wasn't brought up until she got to America, which I thought was very interesting. So in this quote that I'm showing that I wrote down on a Post-it note, it says, "They make you become aggressive just to hold your dignity." And I love that quote so much. I think that it says a lot about how sometimes people react to racism in order to get respect. And in this case, Auntie Uju was referring to a teacher that DK had who was yelling at her from across the hall. And she said that she didn't do that with any of the other parents. Now, in context, all the other parents are white. DK is the only Black child at that school. So now up at the top of the page, I am going to draw a small picture of what I feel Efemelu was going through, or how her mind was changing when she came to America. So I am just coloring the background in green just to represent the land that she's in now, which is America. And this is the top of her forehead with all of these cones basically coming out of them. And to me, each cone represents a piece of her identity. So the way she wears her hair, the way that she speaks, using her accent or choosing not to use her accent, who she dates, and how she is going through relationships and what she's thinking about, and how that transforms what she thinks about Black people in America. Her blog, and how she writes an anonymous blog, and she was telling one of the men that she was dating, who she calls the hot professor in her blog, she said, at one point, "I just want to observe. I just want to be someone who observes." And he said, "Well, you have a cultural responsibility to tell people what you see and be honest about it." So a lot of these things were taking place, such as wearing her hair, for example. She had her hair in natural styles when she first came to the United States. I believe she had it in braids, and she was going on an interview. And one of her friends, who she had known in Nigeria in high school, who had already gotten her visa to live in America, she told her that when you go on interviews, girl, you need to straighten your hair. So Efemelu put a relaxer in her hair, and all of it fell out. And she was upset. She was getting sores and scabs in her head, and she was so determined to keep that hairstyle until someone else was able to tell her, "Hey, like you can wear your hair natural." So that's just one of the examples of how she is allowing what's happening, or the world that she's living in America, invade her mind into thinking that who she is as a person cannot go out into the world and be successful. But then she also changes her mind. So some of those cones have a little bit of the green in them. Some of them are very high. They have no space for the green at all. She's not going for it. And then some of them are completely swallowed up by the green. So I really thought that exemplified what her mind was going through as it was changing. So for the rest of this page, I kind of write some of the things that happened in the book and what it meant, I would say, to me. And hopefully that's what the author was trying to convey. But the way this book is written, it uses some of her relationships to tell stories. Her relationship with DK touched on microaggressions and how the education system, or the teachers in the education system who maybe have not taught a young Black kid before, don't understand his energy level. They don't understand that he needs sunscreen when he goes outside. And maybe his friends around him are calling him names that they think is funny and DK thinks is funny until it's not. It also touches on suicide. DK attempts suicide, and I'm sorry, I should have said trigger warning, but she touches on a lot through Efemelu's relationship with DK, through her relationships with men. We were introduced to a character named Mr. White, who he just worked at the library that Efemelu went to with the hot professor. And at one point, Mr. White had a friend come up to the job. The friend handed him some keys. He handed that friend some money. And someone called the police on Mr. White, and Mr. White was arrested. So on this page, the biggest thing that I have written is being Black means always thinking, did that happen? Or did they say that because I'm Black? Just that thought of always having to say that or always having to think that was just very eye-opening for someone to actually write it down in a novel, in a fiction novel. And I know this isn't groundbreaking for a lot of people. I know that, but this was my first time actually reading through it. So it was pretty dope. On this page, I also touched on like code switching, how the hot professor, again, code switches. He uses slang with the Mr. White, the man at the library, but he does not talk in slang to Efemelu or his own sister. And I remember thinking, dang, that's fake. You know, like why doesn't he do that with Efemelu or anybody else, especially his own sister? And then I got to thinking about me doing voiceovers. Even as I'm talking right now, it has occurred to me numerous times that if you can't tell by my hands and the pictures I use, then you can definitely tell from my voice that I am a Black woman. And it's one of those things that I think about, and I have tried in earlier videos to use a kinder, calmer voice when I'm speaking, because that's how a lot of videos on YouTube about bullet journaling are. But I don't have a calm voice. I have a very energetic voice. It's very loud. And that just hit home for me because, and it even goes back to when Efemelu was talking about using her accent, and not using her accent. So things like that are all in this book. It's so much that I cannot talk about in this video. I may make a separate video. I might do a whole nother spread just so I can keep talking about this book. It is amazing. I do recommend it. So on this page, back to the spread. On this page, I am making just a picture that shows basically how this story is truly a romance. Now, I will say, I was mad at Efemelu for how she treated Obenzi after something happened, something went down that she wasn't proud of, and some things were exchanged, okay? And she kind of cut Obenzi off, and I was upset with her. So I was a little mad with her at first, but it's human. We all human, you know, we make mistakes. But basically, they were sending emails to each other. He was still in Nigeria. She was in America. Then even when he moved to London and she finally reached back out to them, they were emailing each other. Even though they had stopped after all that time of her going through college and being in relationships with other men. And after all of that time, when they finally came back to each other at the very end of the book, might I add, out of 588 pages, I don't think they met each other again until page 488. But they did come back together. And it was beautiful. So that was my spread on Americanah, the book. This is the final flip through. And yeah, I'll see you guys next Tuesday for another video. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.